All right, thank you very much for joining us again for this new case study session organized by the Global Supply Chain Council. My name is Max Henry. I'm going to be your host for today's discussion. Again, I'm very, very pleased to have all of you joining us, wherever you are, whether you're in Asia, the Middle East, or in Europe. So as some of you know, we organized this case study session to allow some of the industry leaders to showcase some of their success stories that they had with their own supply chain operation. And we're very pleased today to have special speaker who's joining us from the Philippines, Arnel Gamboa, who is the Vice President of Logistics and also looking at procurement for ACE Hardware Corporations. So in like the other case study that we've done in the past, we are going to be hearing from Arnel first. He's going to give us a short presentation to kind of give us a bit more details about what they did at ACE Hardware. And then after that, we will open, the session for your questions. So if you have any question for Arnel, you can ask at any time. You can click on the question mark button located at the bottom of the screen. Just click there. You can ask your question during the presentation. At the end, during the Q&A, we will then take all those questions after Arnold is done with his PPT, and then we will then spend enough time. I think we should be having around half an hour for all those questions. So again, plenty of time to address your concerns and questions for Arnold. So again, don't hesitate to click on the question mark button at the bottom of the screen. This session is recorded, so if you are coming late or you miss part of it, no worries, you'll be able to watch a replay, and that replay will be made available inside our replay section on the chain.net platform. Another thing also I want to add is that if you worry about missing your next call or next meeting at 5 p.m. Hong Kong, Singapore, no worries. We'll make sure to wrap up a few minutes before the end of the hour, so you have time to get ready for your next call or meeting. All right. So without further ado, I'd like to again introduce, to bring on Arnel Gamboa. I didn't introduce him. I'm going to let him introduce himself. I think it's better. Arnel again is the Vice President of Logistics for ACE Hardware Corporation. He's going to talk. His case study is about people power procurement, and he's going to talk about his transformation story at ACE. So it's going to be very interesting. Thank you and welcome, Arnel. Go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Max. And I take this opportunity to thank the Global Supply Chain Council for giving us this window to present a business case, which is the transformation project for ACE Hardware Philippines. Let me just add on something to what you've already mentioned about my business corporate profile. I've been in the industry for some time now, nearly about 2.5 decades already. I've been into different facets of supply chain. So I've been into manufacturing, production, agribusiness, cold chain, lighting fixtures, books, supplies, and until now, I'm handling hardware stuff. My expertise is also a bit diversified. So I've handled warehouse operations, logistics, transport, procurement, demand planning, business development, 3PL and 4PL operations. So as you mentioned, I'm also the Vice President for logistics at ACE Hardware today. At ACE, I cover warehouse operations, distribution logistics, and of course, the indirect procurement operations or the non-trade inventories as well. So let me quickly share my slide to start off the discussion.
And again, if you're just arriving for this session, don't hesitate to ask a question to Arnel at any time by clicking on the question mark button located at the bottom of the screen. Okay, go ahead, Arnel. We can see your slides. Everything works. Yeah, no problem.
Thank you for that confirmation, Matt. So today, what I'd like to share, I'm very excited to share with everyone here, is our Race to Place project for indirect procurement transformation. So as you can obviously see, Race to Place actually contains ACE inside it, but there's actually an acronym behind it under RACE. It's representing resilience, adaptability, competitiveness, and excellence. So everything pertaining to the end-to-end management of supply chain. So maybe perhaps to kick off the discussion, let me give you a short background of who Ace Hardware is. So Ace actually is the biggest hardware cooperative globally. It's roughly about 5,900 stores worldwide, and it has a very rich legacy. It started sometime in 1924, so we're already on our 101st year this year in 2025, and continuously building its footprint globally, different countries. Here in the Philippines, meanwhile, Ace Hardware is actually part of the SM Retail Group. And SM Retail is the biggest retail conglomerate here in the Philippines. We have roughly about 240 stores and counting as well. Ace is considered as a modern hardware store here in the Philippines. It's mostly located at malls, standalone shopping centers, and sometimes at independent buildings as well. So, as I mentioned, the Race to Place project is actually a complete end-to-end transformation of the supply chain. And as you can see here, the project charter actually encompasses all of the processes inside the supply chain. The indirect procurement transformation project actually aims to cover the procurement or purchasing function, uh, basically with the goal of improving efficiency, accuracy, and in reducing the cost. We've had certain challenges, most especially during the pandemic, where we've had obstacles in terms of
Sorry,
managing inventory. Or
sorry,
go
Arno.
ahead.
We're not able to see your slide for some reason. It just come in and off. If you can maybe stop sharing again and share one more time. Maybe don't do the full screen, and then we can, because your slides just pops up. Yeah, I think this is better. Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
Maybe if you can, let's keep it this
All right.
way. Okay,
All
that's
right.
good. Yeah.
So I'll
Let's
just
keep it this way.
minimize this.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. All right. All right. So moving on. So as I mentioned, with you know, our business, our company is no different from other businesses. Even if we are a large conglomerate in the Philippines, we are experiencing the same issues with other corporations when it comes to supply chain. So at the start, to give you a very good picture of where we were, we had very manual processes. Most of the procedures that we've had were disconnected, and there is a lack of visibility when it comes to and this led to eventually issues when it comes to overstocking, when it comes to underserving products, when it comes to fill rates, when it comes to quality. The goals of the projects were the following, mainly to improve inventory record accuracy. Second is to reduce inventory valuation, lower it down, and then improve vendor delivery lead time as well, and improve fill rate performance. And then lastly, of course, is to improve the picking accuracy. So it was a complete package, so to speak, and we were looking at all of the drivers that would affect customer satisfaction at the end of the day. And as you know, mostly everyone today in procurement are measuring net promoter scores and CSATs as well. So this heavily affected our customer satisfaction, so to speak. So the scope of the project, and which will I be walking you through these slides, would be the current state of the operations of indirect procurement. Of course, I'm going to also show you where we want to go, the future state. What were the actions taken, or the specific action steps that we took in order to roll out the business transformation. of course, the controls, which basically represent the continuing efforts in terms of improving the current landscape, and lastly, in terms of the moving forward. So, to start off, actually, this project started mainly because I was taking my master's for procurement, logistics, and supply chain management around in 2021. And there is this term paper that I've started, and it was all discussing the benefits of looking at improving procurement in organization. And what I did is that using all of the available procurement tools like Kraljic Matrix, which is basically also known as spend analysis, probability and impact reach, which is helping in terms of risk assessment and management. Carter's 10 Cs, which was also helping in terms of assessing the competitiveness of suppliers. And of course, we did very basic analysis of the Pareto principle, and created also a risk register so that we can be sure that all of the angles and possibilities we are considering as far as primary risks, secondary risks, and even residual risks. So it was basically a process that helped convert theory into practical application, because we've actually assessed the real life situation as Ace at Ace Hardware during this time. So this is basically the project team. So we've involved mostly the operations team from our group. So I was the project sponsor, and then the project manager was basically my senior warehouse manager. And we had the procurement team, which is the manager, fixed assets and supplies manager, build the project team, defining the roles and also clarifying what needs to be done as far as the future state is concerned. So just to give you a very clear idea of what the project involved or covered, I'll walk you through the different states of the project, starting with the problem statement, the current state, actions taken, the end state, and of course the control phase. So, of course, when we talk about the problem statement, as I mentioned, we were littered with challenges, with obstacles. One of them is the low inventory record accuracy, which basically created some side effects when it comes to ordering accuracy and fill rate. We also had a very high level of inventory. We were averaging about 4 months and above in terms of sales to stock ratio, and this was eating up working capital. There was longer vendor delivery lead time as well. Sometimes it would take 60 to 90 days before a vendor would deliver. And this effectively meant keeping more inventory at the warehouse before we are actually able to replenish the items. We had very low fill rate as well, mainly because of vendor management, very poor vendor management. And then, of course, lastly, since we were working on a very cluttered and disorganized warehouse environment, there was low picking accuracy. So sometimes the items they were looking for could not be found. Okay, so just to give you another clearer picture and show you some numbers, at the time, our inventory record accuracy was very low at 5%. We were keeping a very high inventory of 10 million pesos plus, and this was considered high because we were keeping indirect procurement or non-trade inventory. Vendor lead time compliance was also low at 80% level, and the fill rate is also dismal at 74%. Picking accuracy while at 98% can also be considered low, and there is a very high or big room for improvement. So some of the things that we've done are SKU rationalization. We've also done relayouts or zonings. There is also the fulfillment regionalization when it comes to the order and replenishment process for stores. We've done vendor management and strategic procurement for some of the categories that we handle. We've also rolled out specific action steps when it comes to improving the go-to-market experience. And lastly, we've assigned some controls as far as counter checking is concerned. So again, to give you an idea where we landed, we were able to improve the IRA from 5 to 100%, lower down inventory levels from a high of 10 million pesos to just 2.5 million pesos, and increase the vendor lead time compliance from 84 to 87%. The fill rate performance also went up from 74 to 82%, and picking accuracy rose to 99.99%. Some of the control measures that we've implemented are daily cycle counting, improved labeling with image classifications. We've assigned area accountability as well for warehousemen as part of their ownership. There is also a close coordination and follow-ups with vendors when it comes to their service level agreements. And of course, there is the items for new employees as well. So again, when it comes to the problem statement, we call this hidden issues in procurement processes and operations. These are the things that we are looking at to improve. So poor inventory record accuracy, high inventory levels when it comes to stock cover, low fill rates for fulfillment, longer vendor delivery lead time, which also forces us to keep higher levels of inventory. And because the warehouse is so congested, there is the low picking accuracy. So we've mentioned about the current state. The IRA is very low at 5%. And this is mainly because of human errors. We have a cluttered warehouse. We have a large number of SKUs as well, considering non-trade. There were no fixed pin locations for the pick faces or pickable locations. And there was no counter checking or validation. And as far as the high inventory level is concerned, there was a point, and we have to admit it, there was over ordering many times because we were not monitoring the min max and the different parameters like reorder point for replenishment. There's poor visibility as well. We were not regularly monitoring the replenishments, and this added up with poor forecasting. And we also had non-moving items in our inventory back then. And for the vendor lead time compliance, there was also no monitoring of the vendor service level agreement. And there was also very poor coordination. So even if the vendor was not performing, this was not properly communicated to the supplier. The strategy that we had is mostly made to order, which explained why we had a very long lead time when it comes to ordering. And there were supplier inconsistencies despite this. As far as the fill rate is concerned, we had inventory shortages because of poor forecasting. Again, there were supplier delays in terms of the required delivery dates. We had poor inventory tracking. We were not doing cycle counting at the time. And order cycle was also a big problem. So some stores would order 1 month and then they would wait on the third month or fourth month before they would order again. So this somehow distorted the order cycle that we had. And lastly, of course, when it comes to picking accuracy, there was no verification of the physical process, no side checker and picking. There was poor labeling thereafter. So what we did quickly in terms of turning around, converting challenges or obstacles into opportunities. So basically, for inaccurate inventory, we introduced weekly cycle countings, and this covered all of the assortment basically. For the cluttered or disorganized storage locations, we did some relayout and making sure that this time all of the items that belong to the same category were located at the same physical zone or location. And then we actually did an ABC profiling of those categories, making sure that the items that were fast moving were located near the staging or dispatch area. As far as overstocking and shortages are concerned, so what we did is basically SKU rationalization. And I'll share the details later. So this meant that we basically eliminated which brought the bread and butter for most of the class Cs and just maintain a safe level for class B. And then for no purchasing schedules or ordering cycles, so what we did is we introduced a purchasing schedule, which basically covered a regional level of window per clusters of stores. And of course, this is talking about the geographical location of the stores. And before we were even having simultaneous store ordering. So if I did mention a while ago, if there were times that stores did not order, there were also times that stores would be ordering at the same time. So it was a feast and famine issue, and definitely because this was happening, some stores would not be given allocation. So we've introduced, as I mentioned, regionalized ordering cycle to make sure that we were able to spread out demand and as well as match that with the incumbent supply. And we had manual labeling as well. This became a predicament because of the nature of manual labor, inscribing where the items would be going out. There were some errors that sometimes were made because of the handwritten notations. So what we did to address this and also to introduce track and trace capability is to provide e-transmittal systems per touch point. So this means that coming from the DC, once we hand over to truckers or forwarders for inter-island shipping until they reach the stores, we are able to have some visibility. And of course, we were using improvise or cut out cartons to provide outside or secondary packaging for the items we were delivering to the stores. Now, to standardize this and to save time, and as well as protect and secure the items, we introduced the use of tote boxes. And this drastically improved productivity and sped up the processes. Okay, so as far as the rationalization is concerned, this has helped us in terms of fixing, analyzing, and serving and transforming the total distribution process for the stores. So, can you imagine from a high of 567 SKU assortment back in 2022, we were able to streamline that to about 223 line items by quarter 1 of 2023. So that is practically about 61% pruning of the SKU assortment, and we were able to retain about 39%. And we made sure that whatever was retained was actually the items that we needed or the class A items. And what's good about this is that we were able to move out and deplete the inventory that was back then congesting our warehouse capacity and provided freed up space for the items that were really needed by the company. So, as a step for that major activity, we tried to identify the some of the non-moving items and reissue for the obsolete items, we dispose them to finally a major clean with the new rationalized SKU assortment. So when it comes to some of the SKUs that were rationalized, some of them were not actually taken out from the menu or catalog of SKUs that we cater to our operations. We actually entertained the potential to convert some into upon request, which meant we won't keep inventory. And for those that we will be keeping inventory for, we turn them as stockable. So they are inventoriable. They had buffer stocks at the warehouse, and this allowed us now some flexibility when it comes to the maintenance of assortment inside the DC. So eventually, what we had is roughly about 76% of stockable items and about 24% of upon request items. So the items were basically made available when there is a need or demand. And then this meant more space and less waste for the warehouse operations. And this led to, of course, reduction in terms of unnecessary inventory expenses and save working capital in the process. All right. So the next one is basically the lowering down of the stock to sales ratio or the inventory level of the whole ecosystem, the whole supply chain. So our target back then was to reduce the inventory from an average of 3 to 4 months to just 1 month supply. And we were able to do this by basically making sure that we had strategic classification or categorization of inventory. So we made sure what was class A was were the SKUs that were prioritized as far as space allocation is concerned. And class B was limited to a few weeks of inventory. And definitely, if we had class C, these were the prime SKUs candidates for the upon request classification. Definitely, we prevented overstocks in the process because we were constantly monitoring the delivery and behavior of the demand coming from the stores. And we also tried to optimize the replenishment. So we calibrated the min max and reorder points, ensuring that there is more delivery frequency and lesser volume coming from the different vendors or suppliers. And eventually, with all of these efforts, we were able to lower down inventory from 10.4 million pesos in 2022 down to about 2.5 million pesos in 2023. There's roughly about 75% reduction in terms of inventory level. Another important initiative that we did as far as the housekeeping is concerned, which supported basically the smooth flow of the merchandise, the physical flow of merchandise within the warehouse itself, is our layout and zoning for the different categories and sub departments. Again, as I mentioned, we've assured that all of the fast moving SKUs are located nearer the stage, thus lower moving ones are at the back. And then we've also the shipping processes, ensuring that every step of the way there is now a validation of the system. As we monitor the movement, we make sure that the posting in the system is also updated. And of course, the 100% delivery itemization. This just practically means that aside from the box counting that we used to do from suppliers, we've also engaged in terms of piece counting and ensuring that we are able to optimize and ensure that the inventory record is accurate from the very first step, which is receiving. So as you can see, some of those efforts were already bringing some low-hanging fruits. So because of the rationalization of the assortment, because of the lowering down of inventory, and reorganization and housekeeping of the physical warehouse, the inventory record accuracy actually improved almost immediately. So I think it was just about 6 or 8 months after we've implemented most of the projects, most of the initiatives that I mentioned, that we readily already gotten some positive impact when it comes to the IRA. And this IRA is basically a result of the physical counts, the official physical counts, wall-to-wall counts that we do for the warehouse. So starting 2023, we already immediately hit the ceiling of 100% IRA, coming off from a very low IRA of 5% in 2022. And since then, until 2025, we have never looked back. It has been 100% inventory record accuracy ever since for the past 3 years. And the secret to this is actually no secret. So some of the things that we've done, we just done consistently and diligently. This included weekly cycle counts, the assignment of counter checkers, of course, the validation of quantities, both coming in and coming out. So there is what we call the three-way match. We make sure that the PO, the goods receipt, and likewise, we have what we call the advanced shipping notice. They all match together when we actually receive them. And as I mentioned, we've also made efforts in terms of reorganizing the storage areas by making sure that we had zoning for fast moving items and for slower moving ones at the back. All of the items that were with the same category belong to the same zone as well. And then we've improved the labeling to make sure that it is now more readable and computer generated. And as I mentioned, there is already the benefit of each transmittal providing track and trace for every touch point. The next one is basically helping in terms of delivering more and missing less. This has to do with the fill rate, okay, of the fulfillment to stores. So what we did is that we've actually introduced forecasting. So we've initially started with historical sequence methods, so looking at the historical sale or historical offtake of the items that we had. But eventually, we for forward forecasting coming from operations as well to ensure that we had a healthy balance of the historical performance and what to expect in the future. We've also enhanced vendor coordination. So if we expect that there is going to be a surge in terms of demand, there is also certain flexibility with our vendors. If we can ask them to deliver earlier, sometimes that happens as well, especially for big vendors. We've improved the frequency of replenishment coming off from just a monthly replenishment. We have started to practice weekly replenishment coming from strategic key vendors. There's regular monitoring of inventory levels, so to make sure that we don't have too much and too little. And of course, lastly, to manage the bullwhip, which we had back then, we were experiencing more often back then. We've introduced the regionalization of ordering of stores. So we've clustered the stores geographically and according to their sales office, which basically led to a better harmonized demand skewing for indirect procurement. Next is basically improving the speed to serve. So this basically pointed to a shorter lead time for the DC to fulfill the orders coming from the stores. So we mentioned the weekly requisition plan. We've just divided that and allocated schedules on a regionalized level. So week one, for example, we have this mean this is practically the region where we have the inter-island shipping. On week two, we have the national capital region, which is basically Metro Manila. And then on week three, we have North Luzon, and week four, we have South Luzon, which is the biggest island. That's why it's divided into two major regions. So this paved the way in terms of balancing the skewing, spreading out the volume across the month. And of course, the re-layout and zoning again help in terms of better access, easy access, more familiarization coming from the stockmen. The fixed beans also improve the replenishment of the items at the pickable location. And then we've used tote boxes as well. These now help us in terms of improving the security and handling of deliveries across NCR and Luzon. This also somehow helped us in terms of our sustainability initiative because tote boxes are returnable to the DC. They can be used again. And then, as I mentioned a while ago, from manual labeling, we've introduced each and SMITAL. So this is an internal system in SM, and this allows us now with the QR code, one scan of that to ensure that we are able to track and trace the touch points within the whole supply chain. And then we've also introduced the improved labeling, so making sure that each of the pickable location has a very clear description and item barcode, and likewise the item code of the items that we are serving to ensure that there is no confusion and improve picking accuracy. All right. So the next one is ensuring that we have the right item at the right time. So this has to do with our distribution practices. And this starts, of course, with picking 98% at the start, and we ended up at 99.99% back in 2024, almost 100%. So again, there are really no big moves as far as technology is concerned. It's just a matter of business process improvements. We've assigned counter checkers to ensure that we are eventually improving the quality of work coming from our pickers and packers. We've also introduced a verification process. Basically, before picking, this happens in the office where the SKU is validated if it has stocks and if the pick line has been replenished. Then, of course, there is also the verification or validation after shipping in the system as well. Again, ensuring that the right SKUs have been picked and the right quantity have been packed as well. And finally, is the proper piling and labeling at the dispatch area.
Arnel, I'm sorry to
Another
interrupt you.
important,
Sorry, Arnel, but we
go
have a
ahead,
number of
Max.
questions already, and I want to make sure that we have enough time to take them. So if you
Sure,
could just wrap up quickly, and then so we have enough time to take
sure.
those questions here. Thank you.
Sure. Let me wrap up, Max. Thank you so much, Matt, for that reminder. So, another thing that we've implemented is the go-to-market strategy. So, actually, this just means that we've done some tote boxes implementation for distribution. We've improved the pick and pack process. Again, we've migrated from manual labeling to each and metal, and we've also introduced direct-to-store delivery for some select items that we have, including collaterals for marketing and gondolas for the store. Um, and of course, we've shortened the vendor lead time for our suppliers. You can see here on the screen, we've recalibrated the min max. We've also introduced vendor management to ensure that key vendors, strategic vendors, are delivering on a shorter period of time and more frequencies. And finally, we've also started the monitoring, close monitoring of the replenishment week on week basis. And because of this, there is a dramatic improvement in terms of the reduction of vendor lead time from the start of the release of the purchase order. So finally, the end state, as we've mentioned, we've reached 100% IRA, coming from 5%. We've lowered down 10 million inventory level to 2.5 million. We've improved the vendor lead time compliance to 87%. We've also increased the fill rate to 82% and picking accuracy to 99.99%. Now, maybe a lot of you might ask if there was some technology transfer, there was automation that was involved in terms of the business transformation. I would tell you that while there are a few of them that we've used, but the major secret here that drove, that's why the case study is called people powered procurement, is basically the people behind the operations. And you can see here that we are continuing what we've started by making sure that today we are assigning an accountable person per bin rack location at the warehouse. Also, the daily cycle countings, we've moved from weekly to daily. There is also the proper stock arrangement with printed, published some catalogs as well for warehouse people to follow. And then, as far as procurement is concerned, we are optimizing it by making sure that we've updated the master file for MOQ requirements. We've also created the conversion for stockable and to upon request items. And then, of course, lastly, consistently monitoring vendor performance. And lastly, for logistics, we've improved the zoned layouts for fast access and optimized storage utilization. So finally, what we've done so far for Ace Hardware isn't just an inventory fix. It is actually a complete operational transformation. And I'm very proud to say that the heart and center of this transformation has been, as I mentioned, the employees who belong to the Ace Hardware Fixed Assets and Supplies team. And just to segue on this one, I'd like to stress again, underscore the importance of culture in organizations. Most of the people that I've worked with in Ace Hardware are actually the same people that I came with when I onboarded Ace Hardware about 5.5 years ago. So there were no people who were replaced. In fact, most of them are tenured. Some of them have been with Ace for 30 years, 15 years of service. So I guess what I'm trying to tell you here is that anything is possible as long as we have an open mind and we have the strength of the heart to follow changes. The people are the secret to business transformation. And just recently, this is fresh off the grill. The same business case of Ace Hardware, which is Race to Place, just yesterday was awarded the Best Warehousing and Fulfillment Strategy Award with the Supply Chain and Logistics Summit just held yesterday here in Manila. And we were also the honorable mention for the Supply Chain Innovation of the Year award as well. So hopefully you were able to have some practical takeaways with our business case. So I'm happy to take some questions starting now. Thank you, Max.
Thank you very much, Arnold, for this very detailed presentation about what you've done. Fantastic. Okay, so let's jump in into the questions, and there are quite a number of them. So I'll start maybe with the take them in chronological order. First question for you, Arnold, from Yanisa, asking how did you get management buy-in for all these changes in the first place?
Mhm. Yes, so perhaps as you have observed, there was a thorough study that was made before we've started to assemble the project together. And together with that research study that we did, we've also launched several surveys when it comes to the present state of our operations with key stakeholders. So we've included that as part of the pre-work and as part of the cascade and consultation that we did with key stakeholders. So definitely, as far as the project management methodology is concerned, we've started with ensuring that we had a 360-degree consultation of stakeholders. And from there, we've actually made some cost benefit analysis and included that in the project charter and presented that to, of course, the management for approval. And if you have a clarity of purpose and direction, I think that is what management is always after, bottom line. So what's in it for the business if we engage this project? And it was very clear, as far as the key benefits were concerned. Everything was measurable. As Peter Drucker would have said, what you measure, you can manage. So I think it became very obvious to management that this is something that was really doable. Secondly, it was something relevant and useful. It had practical applications. And finally, of course, in terms of meaningful change, this is something that would definitely turn the course of ACE hardware as far as indirect procurement is concerned.
Okay. All right, let's move on to the next question. Someone is asking, how did you identify so many issues? What was your approach to find those issues? Did you use consultants?
Mhm. Thank you. That's a very good question. Um, Actually, we didn't have consultants. So the consultants that I had were the pool project team, the people that you saw on the photo. And the primary tool that we used, the approach that we use is basically design thinking methodology. So we had to make sure that it was human centered. We made sure that we were thinking of the user or the customer whenever we were proposing changes as far as the business landscape is concerned. Definitely, there has to be a very clear benefit why we would have to change something. And lastly, of course, it was an iterative process. So we assured the team that if ever we've recommended something and we saw that there's going to be an adverse effect to the operations, we made sure that we had a very rapid intervention when it comes to that rollout of the project. So I would say that the project is it's somehow like a living organism. So while we had a purpose, we had a scope in mind, and we had goals in the project charter, we knew where the destination was. We were quite flexible as to the how, basically how the process went in. So very similar with Amazon, how Jeff Bezos is giving direction to Amazon. The direction is very firm, but when it comes to execution, Jeff Bezos is also very flexible. If one methodology or approach does not work, the only requirement is we have to learn from that mistake. Back to you,
Okay.
Max.
Next question, question from Snigdha. What were the best practices you used for labeling and layouts of SKUs?
Mhm. So this one is a bit tricky, but at the same time, I think it's very basic. So I just came from a conference, and we were talking about master data. And one of the things clearly that was creating some confusion from the physical process and system level process was the actual description and item coding of the merchandise or products. So there were times that we were not actually aligned. And as far as the naming convention is concerned, what we just did is ensure whatever is reflected in the system is actually what was labeled in terms of the actual pins. And if there was a need to improve the labeling or naming convention, we suggested that, of course, to the master data custodians as well. So ensuring that whenever we were putting away items at the storage areas, we were also reading the same thing as far as the pick list, as far as the system is showing to us. So basically, it's an alignment end to end, system and physical. Thank you, Max.
Okay, thank you for your question. Let's move on to the next one. Did you use any AI or software to support your SKU rationalization?
Mhm. For this one, while we had, I'm not sure if I can plug it, Max, but we were using a particular software for procurement, and it had an AI assistant as well. So while it had an AI assistant, it's not yet a conversational AI, so to speak. So meaning, in the lingo of AI experts today, if you had an AI conversational AI rather, this AI will be able to execute certain tasks like an AI bot, similar to what probably an agentic AI can do. So the difference, I think, with agentic AI is that it is more autonomous. So what we did actually, we reverted. We depended in terms of conventional AI tools like Gemini and Copilot, but more of Copilot in terms of asking what is the best practice when it comes to naming conventions. But likewise, from our own collective experience, we've also established which is the best way to go. And I think at the end of the day, simply what works best for all of us is where we can identify the SKUs faster. So we've interviewed people on the floor, on the ground, like the pickers, the stockmen, the warehousemen, and even the encoders. What to them seem to be the best approach when it comes to naming convention. So again, it's a mix of consulting AI, but at the same time also consulting our stakeholders.
Okay. We've got 5 more minutes, so let's try to take as many questions as we can. What was the hardest part to fix? Inventory, vendors, or process?
Mm. So yeah, this one is also a tricky one. It's a tricky question. So I've always believed in the power of the golden triangle, and it's a framework that's being used for project and change management initiatives. So it's people, process, and technology. And over the years of experience of using it and implementing it, I found that process and technology, they're easier to use and implement. In as much as we would like to use the three separate elements as co-equal parts in terms of assessing the current state and likewise using the same framework in terms of designing the transformation strategy that we would like, there will always be what we call in Latin primus inter pares, or the first among equals. And I find that people is, I have to admit, is the most difficult thing to change. So precisely, it's the resistance to change. So I did mention that when I came in, there were several seasoned, tenured leaders already on board, and of course, the hardest part for them to do is to let go of the incumbent practice that they had at the time. So there was some sort of a separation anxiety, so to speak. So when it comes to introducing changes or new practices, definitely there was a difficult thing in terms of buy-in. But of course, eventually, the key in terms of getting that buy-in is just to make sure that we are able to explain it properly to them, show to them the benefits, but more importantly, how it is done. And for me, that is the only way to really convince people in terms of buying in, and at the end of the day, also converting some of the doubters into your supporters at the end of the day. Thank
Yeah.
you, Max.
Okay. Okay. Let's try to take maybe one more question. Uh, how long did you take from start to where you are now? Question from
Mm,
Brian.
sure. So that's also a good question. So normally, when we look at the project timeline, the normal course of a change management initiative is just about 6 to 12 months. But I think you've already seen the magnitude of the scope of the project and the various and diverse elements that we had to deal with. So it took us about, I think, 8 to 12 months before we can actually register some improvements as far as inventory record accuracy is concerned. And later on, after the ensuing several months, we've had some improvements as far as fill rates, turnaround time. So it was like a domino effect, a
Mm,
chain reaction. And not all of them came in at the same time. So I would say the complete phase of the project came in around 24 to 36 months. And up until today, I can see that there are still some tweakings that we do. So it is a continuous improvement, I would like to say. It's a living project. So every time that we see there is an opportunity to improve something else, we do that immediately. I
Okay.
hope I was able to answer your question, Brian.
Yes, yeah. Okay, thank you. And then maybe let's take a final one because this is an interesting question. And maybe we can wrap up if you can just comment or reply to this in just a minute. Any advice for someone starting a similar procurement transformation from scratch? What would be your final advice, Arno?
Yeah, thank you, Max. So I guess we just have to be honest. We need to have a sincere assessment where we are today. It's sometimes easy to understand in this competitive arena where everyone is trying to be better than the other. However, I think it starts in terms of acceptance where we are today. And I had, in my process of getting that buy-in from my team, I had to start by convincing them these realities. There's the brutal truth, the ugly truth. So we need to first accept where we are before we can actually move towards action planning and towards change management. And at the end of the day, one thing that is also very important, please start with a very clear direction and purpose for the project. This also helps align as far as vision is concerned and clarify the rules as far as the stakeholders. This in turn helps in terms of clarifying contribution, how they can add value, and at the end of the day, it brings the whole team together on the same page. So I think that's a very practical advice I can give, Max. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Arnel, for this presentation today, and thank you for the audience for asking those questions. This was again our case study session with Arnel Gamboa from Ace Hardware, based in the Philippines. Very interesting overview of your project. If you missed again part of the presentation, the replay will be made available tomorrow. So give us about 24 hours so we can get everything ready. And again, if you have any more questions for Arnel, feel free to contact him through the chain.net platform where you can find him. He'll be happy to answer your question and follow up with you. Thanks again, Arnel. Okay, we'll see you again at our next event.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. It was nice presenting to you. Thank you.
Thank you,
Take
everyone.
care.
Okay, we'll see you next time. Bye bye.